Vice President of Government Relations for the organization. And I have had the opportunity to work in a number of settings. I've worked for national advocacy organizations. I've worked on Capitol Hill. I've of course worked for Novant Health. And I have learned a great deal. I've learned the importance to any organization of strategically leveraging external engagement. Strategically leveraging where an organization and where an organization's team members are active in trade associations, professional groups, on boards, commissions. But I've also learned how incredibly difficult this is for large organizations like ours. But if we want to continue to tell the Novant Health story of remarkable patient care, we have got to get informed and intentional about external engagement. And we are not doing this today. Something I haven't learned a whole lot about is farming. Growing up in and around DC did not afford me that opportunity. But I've been thinking about farming recently in the context of external engagement, and I want to tell you why. In any business, we want to utilize all of our resources. Farming is no different. A farmer may grow corn to sell, but also to feed their livestock, using a resource across the enterprise. It's important. We have Novant Health team members today, I promise you, that are involved in organizations that can really help us advance our mission, our vision, and our values. There is very likely someone in here today that serves on a board alongside a longtime foundation prospect, or serves on a board with a legislator that is scheduled to talk about Certificate of Need in the upcoming session. Certificate of Need is so important to our organization. In Winston-Salem alone, we estimate it's worth about $50 million a year. Or imagine this, imagine there's a Novant Health team member that again serves on a board with representatives from companies all throughout North Carolina, South Carolina, our whole footprint, that could really benefit from hearing about corporate health and all the services Nicole talked about. Could really benefit from that. Could benefit from hearing about health coaches. Could benefit from hearing about Novant Health decreasing our own employee health care costs. And imagine that that team member knows about this connection and is equipped to look for opportunities to discuss these services. These are opportunities to leverage, but if we don't know about them, we can't leverage them. So to that end, I, in partnership with Social Responsibility, recently deployed a survey to 400 Novant Health team members that asked, where are you involved externally? And if you're not, would you like to be? Are you willing to be? You guys, we got a fantastic response. It was really amazing. And we are right now taking that information and putting it in a easy and simple format so that we can use it throughout the organization. Use it to find that foundation prospect, to find that legislator, to find those corporate health projects. But let's take it further. Let's take it to growth. When a farmer wants to grow something new, they're typically going to start with seeds. Typically. I don't know a whole lot about farming yet, but that's what I think. If Novant Health wants to move into a new geographic location, so a new crop, our chances for success are greatly improved if we too seed the land. If we look for opportunities to get involved externally in that community, chambers, rotaries, economic development groups, just being proactive and looking for those opportunities. So I clearly see a time where Novant Health maximizes our current opportunities. Those connections on those boards that we don't know about yet. I see that time. But I also see a time where Novant Health fully leans into the idea of being proactively externally engaged as a strategy. A strategy to allow us to deliver the remarkable patient experience to more people in more communities, seeding the land. So I want to ask of you to think about external engagement differently. Think about where your connections are. I know I'm thinking about where your connections are, and I'm going to be calling you and asking you to leverage them. So I ask that you take my call and work with me to maximize our current opportunities and help me seed the land for future growth. Thank you. What questions can I answer? Thoughts, questions?
Well, you know, oh, sorry, that's all in.
I'm yes.
Yeah. I work in this organization with an external lens,
Yes.
and I think one of the biggest opportunities that I see for our system is really how the need to connect our dots much
Absolutely.
better. Because it is, I think that last line that you said is a strategy.
Mhm.
And we need to view it from a strategic angle, from how it can impact our ability to grow, how it can impact our foundation, our corporate health. I mean, there's so many opportunities, even woven through the vision statements that we've heard this morning for other people. So I think that was a little bit of feedback, not necessarily a question, but I had to get that out.
Okay, good. Duly noted.
So, Marci, you mentioned the survey
Yep.
that was done.
Yes.
So, how do you envision that moving forward to help you with your ask here for external?
Yeah, absolutely. I will say we had such a good response that we're a little overwhelmed with the data from it right now, which is a great problem to have, right? And our expectation is we actually want to extend it much further into the organization. We just started with a particular subset. Really, it comes down to power mapping. Power mapping where people sit today, and again, seeing who else sits on those boards, involved in those organizations, to find those connections and be intentional about finding them. And then I think the really important part of that puzzle is ensuring that where those connections exist, the Novant Health team member is equipped with the information to discuss whatever it is we're hoping for them to proactively look for opportunities when they're in those settings to advance Novant Health. I feel very strongly, and I've had a lot of conversations across the organization about this, that we are so big, it's hard for people to get their arms around, right? It's hard for them to think about what are our 4 or 5 priorities right now. So one of my visions, absolutely, and I think it's a really important piece, is having that in a really easy to digest one pager that if you're going out to a board meeting one night, you can just go on the internet and print it off. So what are, kind of at the top, what are our staples? What do we offer community benefit and the numbers and some of that, but then some dynamic messages that change frequently. And also to create a culture where we feel accountable to do that. We feel it is part of our responsibilities to get those messages out.
And this is near and dear to my heart, so you remember
Yes.
a year ago. So the Board of Nursing was working so hard to get, before the session closed last year, to get the compact
Yep.
licensure passed. And
Yes.
there was one representative in Brunswick County that was key to this.
Mhm.
And so I got a call from the board and saying, Pat, can you help out in your Brunswick hospital to get some support? So connecting with you and your team
Right,
to be sure we were okay to do this. And
sure.
so that letter that Shelburne and Denise wrote, two separate letters with your help,
Yep.
made a world of difference. And I mentioned that because the impact today going to Raleigh, and that was noticed, that Novant Health had a huge
Sure.
impact with getting that legislation passed.
Right,
But it was the relationship that Shelburne and Denise had, and I cannot remember the senator's name,
it was Rayvon, Bill
Okay.
Rayvon. Mhm.
that, made that happen. And it was the
Sure.
right thing to do
Absolutely.
anyway. So-
Absolutely. And I believe in government relations, we've made a real effort in this area, but my vision is even beyond that. Because I think there are opportunities, corporate health, always comes to mind. We should all be talking about that in any of these settings where we are interfacing with other companies. We should feel, again, my hope is to get to a place of a feeling of responsibility that we all have externally, but also then looking at where our gaps exist and where we need to be plugging in and being real proactive and intentional about that as well.
So, Marci, I agree 100% with what you presented and the tool set that we need. But I think another thought is that some of our team members don't feel as comfortable. So what would be your plan to help them? So I know what to talk about with Novant, I know the services,
Yep.
but how do I begin that dialogue with these important people? And how do I think about the board that I'm on and who they might connect us back to?
Sure, absolutely. So certainly training, I think getting people comfortable. I just had a conversation with a team yesterday who was mentioning to me how intimidating certainly the legislative process is. And so training and having a conversation, and I did this with her yesterday, believe me, you know much more than they do. Just from your team, be real clear. You're the expert, they are not by any stretch of the imagination. So depending on the setting, obviously, having conversations like that. But I think some of that intimidation sits hard. I mean, people feel it because they don't have the very basic knowledge of how to, of what to talk about. Because we are so big, sometimes it does get a little bit, at least for me, overwhelming. There's so much going on. But my hope is that we can tailor some of that to everybody's particular situation. And of course, that's a big task. We need to prioritize, and that's what we're doing right now with the data, sort of looking, what are our top 10, what are our top 20, and working it that way. But I can tell you, I don't know that folks, because we're all very busy, know who else sits on boards with them. They don't have that basic level information, and that's what I'm hoping to get out, to get that comfort level to a better place.
Marci, I just have a question. How would you scale this? Obviously, you would need some sort of software or some
Yeah.
system, because you can't do it manually.
Well, funny you should ask, I happen to be so fortunate to have recently hired someone to help me administratively who comes from a CRM background. Used to run all of the constituent relation stuff for the American Cancer Society, actually. So she is really helping me figure out what that looks like. We are going to need to build a database that specifically drops down who else is on a board. But in terms of scaling, I think it's really important that we start with our priorities and not start with the entirety of this now massive document that's been handed to me.
Too much.
You've got to. And then we'll figure out how that information is best received through the organization before we scale it up and figure out what we need to bring in software-wise.
Good. All right. Thank you, Marci. Feedback.
Well, very good opening. I love your gestures, your eye contact, your connection with the audience, and then the use of your words, imagine. I love imagine and how what we could see. You drew us in on the need. Your farming story, connecting the farming story to what we needed. And then when you talked about the seed of the land and how that then, what could we do and the impact that could have, I thought that was very powerful.
I thought it was good that you, Paula said engaged your audience, that you engaged us with the specifics. So you pulled Nicole into the story, and it was clear that you were listening to her story and you were able to use a nugget of that into yours. So I thought that was great.
I thought you came across as someone who has a plan and is strategic and smart. That was what I kept thinking. I love the way at the end, I love it when people have a room full of influential people and they have a specific ask and say, here's what I need you all to do specifically. And you did that. And I liked the farming, it was kind of a quirky little example that when you said, I thought, what the heck is she doing? Yeah, but it made me listen to something that could have gotten dry. And I think without using a buzzword like value proposition, you painted a crystal clear value proposition without ever telling us that's what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
I agree. You were very poised. I really love your use of power statements. At one point you said, I promise you. You used the word leverage. You used the word, you said, I see the time. You said it multiple times. I see the time. I see the time. You drew us into the future. And my mom used to say, don't ever use the word think, use the word believe. Because I will follow you if you believe. And you said a lot of I believe statements. So that really made me pay close attention to you. And then like Deb, I love the call to action at the end. You've got an audience and you've got the time, put in the work. Thanks, John.
Right, oh, thank you.
Especially you said, answer my call.
Good job with the question and answer period too.
Oh, great, thanks. Yeah, I definitely feel passion. Yeah, good, thank
Any
you.
tips to grow even
Oh,
more?
I think this goes to Jill's question about scale, because you're talking to a room of leaders, and so I already know how this connects to our strategic imperative, how this could help us to grow, how this would ultimately potentially increase our access, and all of those things that we're talking about that are important. But as you begin to talk to frontline people who maybe are not as involved in the conversation,
right.
setting the stage for here are the things that are important to your organization, and when you use these key talking points, this is how it connects back to helping us be successful. It may help people who aren't always in these leadership spaces understand the value.
Okay, yeah. That makes lots of sense.
Yeah, I had put in, I thought your examples of the external environment were good, but just connecting it a little deeper, I think would be helpful for a variety of audience.
Okay,
This is probably more of a you did well than things to look for. But you also did a really nice job of being poised and comfortable. I saw a little bit of a different Marci in Q&A.
yeah.
So maybe channel a little bit of that comfort level. You
A
were
more
clearly-
comfortable person in
comfortable.
Q&A.
Thank you, and
No, you were great and poised and comfortable in Q&A.
Uh-huh.
I would channel that a little bit in presentation. You are clearly our expert in this topic. So feel comfortable in that space even when you're doing the presentation.
Okay. Yeah, Q&A does always feel
Yeah.
comfortable to me. So I do need to work on this. Great.
Great, thank you.